Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this week's Metaworld news. It's news for the week ending the 11th of June 2017. Um, I'm Mal Burns, and we'll be joined a little bit later also by James Outloud. And I'll be starting with news from the general realm of what we call virtual reality. You can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Malbones, or one word, that's MALBURNS. We have an additional Twitter feed for this show, which you can find at twitter.com/MetaWorldNews, or one word again. These are the links from my own feed and are very much sort of worldview on the state of VR and things like that. I'm maybe a bit of overlap from last week. I'm not quite sure with the dates in front of me, but uploadvr.com a week ago posted that London, and I am in London as it happens, is getting its first full-scale VR arcade. This is VR arcades are starting to pop up all over the world, from Tokyo to Los Angeles to Mars, probably. And strangely, the UK capital, London, hasn't got one of its own until now. Anyway, you can follow that at uploadvr.com. Arcades are very much sort of becoming probably the entry avenue of VR for many people, I think. Right, how virtual worlds are teaching better lessons. The educational front here, obviously. Post at virtuality-news.net. And an article at uploadvr.com again on something called Hapto, HPTO. Hapto is a bizarre VR controller with haptic feedback. And cute picture that goes with this. Basically, it shows a guy with a headset on, putting his hands out to I don't really know how to describe this. It rather looks like he's, I think the expression is feeling up. a very distinct cartoony looking avatar. So go figure. They probably staged that photo. I think it was, get good mileage out of it. Right. Again, 1 week ago, a site called Inverse, that's INVERSE. Has an article on 3D mapping, which makes cities look like the ultimate Sims fantasy. Sims, of course, is one of those sort of world-building games that preceded the virtual worlds of about 10 years ago, like Second Life, that came after it. And in a way, it's sort of one of the original virtual worlds, even though it's very much a city-building game. Right, so moving forward a little bit into the week, so to speak, and actually we're skipping right ahead here until 4 days ago. And there was, during the week, there was an event called AWE, AWE, AWE 2017, to be precise. AWE is Augmented World. I don't know even what E is.
Right.
Anyway, but there were some interesting things there. One video that I've posted is from, it's a YouTube post, but you can get it via the stream. A chap called Tom Furness. The title of his talk was Falling in Love with Learning in Virtual Worlds in the Home. And so that piece was particularly about virtual worlds. Moving on, there are a lot of videos on the thing here today. Oh, yes. A company called WorldPay. This is actually another UK company. And the report is at VR Times. That's www.virtualrealitytimes.com. WorldPay brings real payments to virtual reality. We hear quite a lot in our hypergrid news and stuff about various currency systems and things that are starting up for Open Simulator and the hypergrid. And of course, even those toys that you play on Facebook often have virtual currencies. In fact, they usually do, because that's the way they rip you off. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, should I? But anyway, this WorldPay are actually a real world banking transaction system, and they are they foresee cryptocurrencies, as they call them, and stuff really taking off. And they also see a future for people actually buying things in virtual reality. It's actually interesting that they cite it as virtual reality, although I suspect that really what they're talking about initially is paying through augmented reality systems. But anyway, interesting report there. Moving on or forwards, more up to date as well. We're 2 days ago already. This is coming along fine, aren't we? The first worldwide directory of VR locations has been released. The post for this, I don't know why I've opened it, we don't need it, is with virtualreality-news.net. And this essentially is not like a hypergrid directory of places to go in virtual reality. It's actually a directory of venues in the real world that are set up for virtual reality. So if you're visiting London here or somewhere, you would simply go to this site, look in the directory and find the nearest venue that is VR equipped, VR in the hardware sense as opposed to being a social world as such. Right, 2 days ago again. This was just rather cute. This couple, as in man and woman, this couple spent 48 hours together immersed in VR. And apparently they're still alive, which is rather interesting. But if you want to find out more about that, you can check out uploadvr.com. Interesting experiment, I guess that was. Apparently they weren't, it's not all positive news, but I'll let you read the article. Too much immersion might be a bad thing. Right. Voicesofvr.com, regular podcast. I don't post them all because this one, or at least one a day, sometimes two. Number 543, this is how many there are already. Visualizing invisible cyber warfare with 0 days VR. This is an interview with somebody behind a program called 0 Days VR, which takes you inside gives you a completely new way of using virtual reality. You go on a journey. Let me open it and give you a little bit more on this. It's actually rather fascinating, although depressing at the same time. You go on a journey into a hyper-stylized cyberspace world where you embody the Stuxnet computer worm as it navigates programmable logic controllers, changing code and destroys Iranian nuclear centrifuges. I bet you it's authored in America if it does that. Right. No comment. It's actually based on journalistic work of a reporter called Alex Gimby, who did a documentary called 0 Days, although it's not actually a promotion for the movie, it's self-contained. But anyway, interesting sort of thing. I suppose on the one hand, something like that gives you knowledge of the way networks are working and the way cyber war could be dangerous or is dangerous actually and be conducted. On the other hand, it's kind of depressing that such things are going on. Anyway, all pertinent to the real world, I suppose. The Week in VR Review. This is a weekly post. It's a podcast, in fact, by Malia Probst. If I ever get her name right, it's unpronounceable. That's her name.
That sounds pretty good.
Probst. Probst.
We have a celebrity in American television with Probst is how they pronounce the name. So like probe, the short E and the ST. But I wouldn't know if it's the same or not.
Probesty. That would be a good surname.
Well,
Malia Probesty, but no, Probst. Okay, Probst or Probst.
Yeah.
She's very good anyway. But if you go to vrscout.com, where it's actually one of the places it's posted, as opposed to the actual podcast site, you get a bit of a commentary in text and stuff to go with this, summary wise, just in case you need a quick summary without listening to the whole thing. Right, so that was yesterday, and talking of yesterday, we've got a few. Post at Medium. The exact link is medium.cinematicvr.com. So that's cinema and then ticvr.org. And yep, that's very attractive to the canines, I gather. I heard something there.
Real world intrudes. Yeah.
Yes. Woof! Sorry, that was me. I can do one too. Right, storytelling for VR audience part 2 is basically the title of the article. Being medium, it's very much an article. There's a lot of good stuff to read on Medium, to be honest. Sometimes they are rather like pitches written by people involved with projects. Other times they're written by journalists who just have comments on the state of affairs and things. But this is quite interesting. Again, it's more focused on future ways the Hollywood cinema industry might use VR than other forms, but it's all about storytelling, and at the end of the day, everything is really, isn't it? Even the presidents of major companies seem to be engaged in fictional storytelling most of the time. Right. VR software trends, year 1. This is a post at virtualrealitypop.com. Virtual reality pop, as in pop music, is all one word, .com. And how is VR content evolving? Basically, it's a summary, not particularly long one, of research focusing on design and content rather than aggregate market sizes or similar numbers. And, of course, it's full of the obligatory sort of graphs and stuff like that. Maria would love this one if she was here, because it's got her sort of charts on it. Anyway, another favourite of mine... I think I can call her a friend, actually. Tish Shoot, you may know her Second Life avatar from way back when as Tara Fivo, I think she called herself. A few years ago, she was the instrumental in founding the OR conference that I mentioned earlier. She's now taken a back seat there because she took a job with, I think it's Hawaii. Yes, it is. HUAWEI. She works for Hawaii XR. But she did give a talk at the All Conference in her own right, so to speak. It's about 20 minutes long and very interesting. So it's on the feed, and it's entitled "The Future of Intelligence." And she's looking at some of the background stuff that borders on AR and VR, not from an Inworld perspective, but intelligent networks and how they will adapt to things like AR and VR. Right, flip the page again. Awful lot I posted yesterday, indeed there is. Right, a company called Fast Code Design. That's fast and Fast Code Sign. Or is it Fast Code Design? I don't know. FastCodesign.com. And they ask, will VR ever be mass entertainment? And ask some very serious questions, pertinent questions, I should say, about whether VR will ever be mass entertainment. I think the question is in our lifetimes. Are people really going to wander around with these contraptions on their head, even when they're as small as plug-in glasses in the future? I think, like everything else, it will be, how many years were computer games not mass entertainment? Well, for many years, they were a niche thing, even though they're now pretty ubiquitous for every child, teenager, and half the world of adults too, I think. So go figure. But they asked a question and they fairly raise a few issues about, convenience and stuff like that. Upload VR, yes, again, uploadvr.com has an article about a new VR glove a new VR glove uses muscle-like chambers to simulate touch. Banded electronics in this glove includes something that they've niftily referred to as soft robotics. In other words, they give tactile feedback to the wearer and they touch and interact with virtual objects, and it's designed to mimic muscle movements and stuff. But more importantly, the phrase soft robotics means that you maybe they're very lightweight, I don't know, but the idea is that you don't really know you're wearing them. But you know, you look at the photo and think, yeah, well, those were you know, they're you know, suitably decorated. They might match your helmet. Anyway, right now, I'm going to quickly go through our intros at the back here. I've just loaded a screen behind me, which is ties in with this final video I posted. I'm sure many of you who are listening to this will know of Philip Rosedale. He founded Second Life and has moved on to found a new platform called High Fidelity. And he's pretty well known. Well, he's pretty used to talking these days, being interviewed and giving talks about his platform and stuff on stages and whatever. But rather unusually, we had an event on Friday where he took my job. He became the interviewer, and he did an interview in High Fidelity. The whole thing is available filmed. It's about 70 minutes long, with somebody else who's very well known online, and that's a chap called Robert Scoble. Robert Scoble has been around social networks and things for a very long time now. I can't actually remember when I first came across him. He's on my Skype list, and I was just thinking the other day, how long has he been there? And what was it he talked about whenever when? But like many others, he's taken an interest in VR recently and become something of an authority on it. So although there was no news as such in this program, the program itself is news, if you see what I mean. It was an interesting interview, but as you can probably see from the screen behind me, which is actually quite a low res capture, both Philip, he's been a real life, you know, his avatars look fairly realistic for a long while, but Scoble had literally just made his avatar. High Fidelity have an arrangement with, unfortunately, I don't have the name of these people they've hooked up with at hand, but they have two places in New York and a couple in Dusseldorf, which I guess is Germany. I presume Robert Scoble went to New York. Basically, you can walk in there and you can get a 3D photorealistic avatar made. Their main line of business, by the way, the thing that is the selling point for this company, whose name I apologize, I have forgotten, is that they scan people and then they 3D print the scan into like little statues and things that people then buy and take home. Hence they go into the store to get the model made of themselves, but they've come up with a system whereby you pay for the model, and then the company concerned and High Fidelity between them get that imported into High Fidelity for you behind the scenes, so to speak. So you not only get a little model of yourself to put on your mantelpiece, you really want to look at yourself as a never mind. But you can also use it as your avatar too. And although this picture doesn't show it, you will see if you watch the video just how lifelike Robert Scoble's avatar is. The two of them, of course, couldn't resist playing around at times. So although they were having quite a serious conversation, they kept on doing hand gestures and playing with each other in the politest possible way, just because they could. I think is the answer. But anyway, very well filmed, obviously, because these avatars look tremendous, but great listen as well. So you can find a link to that via my feed, or you can simply go to youtube.com and look up High Fidelity. They have their own account, and this is actually one of several programs they broadcast during the week. This is the only one that qualifies as serious news as yet. So there you go. That is actually a pretty wonderful event, in my opinion. And oh, good grief, I've got another page too. Sorry, I thought that was the last one. Right. Also a report, road2vr.com. This was a post from this morning. public VR awareness is almost doubling annually, with PlayStation VR and Gear VR leading the way. This basically reckons it's from Nielsen, and they're basically recording the extent to which public awareness of VR is growing. In other words, if you walk down the street and choose somebody with not a pin, you don't want to stick a pin in them, but you get the idea. Choose somebody at random, walk up to them and say, "Have you heard of VR?" Then the chances of them knowing what you're talking about are probably still fairly low, but they're at least twice as high as they were a year ago. You get it? That's the math, I think. Anyway, that's the news. That is actually a report from Nielsen, and it's summarized at roadtovr.com. And that is it for what I might call the overview news. Now, I did mention we have another stream at twitter.com Metaworld News. The latest one there, of course, is another embed of State of two of them, but look at it, what's going on. Oh, yes, I did actually, I said they weren't serious. Earlier in the week, there was another video broadcast from High Fidelity, and there he is again. At this time, Philip, he's not really interviewing anybody, he's just introducing them. But it was a talk about the behavioral science with Jessica Outlaw and Beth Duckles. These are serious behavioral science people. They are obviously big fans of High Fidelity, because the actual title of the broadcast has become The Behavioral Science of High Fidelity. But it's still about behavioral science and the way you use avatars and stuff like that. So another kind of slightly more entertaining. Well, no, I think both broadcasts are pretty entertaining. They have to be, really, in High Fidelity, I think, at this stage. Also, I've got another video here. Guin Guet. Oh, right. Okay, well, if you check out Metaworld News' feed, you will see these things. We also, I should say, post various videos there that they're not, they're to do with the hypergrid. In other words, there's somebody showcases a region on video from the hypergrid and stuff like that, so I put it up there. For some reason, the rest of my posts on this particular are declining. I've got a wheelie. Flipboard, which I use for aggregate or reading what I've already aggregated, is been playing up the last couple of days. It doesn't get through to certain sites. It doesn't want to give me as many pages as I should have. But I'm sure that will sort itself out. It's probably people will be changing their APIs behind the scenes and making life difficult for aggregators like us. Okay, so I think that's about it. I'm going to hand you over to James now, I think, because I believe, James, you have a little bit of news from the developer community, as it were.
Well, yeah, thanks, Mal. And I was able to attend the meeting on Tuesday. And again, this is the open office hours for the OpenSim developers. Anyone's welcome to come and stop by. And again, it was a really good meeting. They're really getting into some nitty-gritty about how the repairs or work that they're doing to do some troubleshooting. Just as a quick summary. There was an interesting discussion about some issues with the listen command, the LL listen command, and I thought the group did some nice work digging into the bug reporting software and tracking that down. Interesting discussion about speed limits in one of the physics engines, the U-Boat physics engine, and that some of the conversation pointed to some videos of some very speedy vehicles and very smooth moving vehicles. So that if you could head to the meeting notes for that session, some people are doing some really nice work.
Which physics engine was that?
Well, this would be U-Boat, and a person was asking about speed limits, but then someone was demonstrating how they were moving very fast with their vehicle builds. Yeah.
Okay, I know Grid's using PhysX.
Okay.
And also ArebaSim, which is hypergrid enabled. But the physics there are phenomenally fast. You've got moving screens, doorways, vehicles. Just fluidly natural.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if it's a particular physics engine. that was demoing there?
Well, as I was tracking this, I thought it was the U-boat engine that they were talking about, or they were trying to see if there was a particular limit on how fast things could move. And then, that discussion then really moved into what I think was maybe one of the issues, which has to do with OSL commands, OSSL commands, which uh, are rated as having a threat level to the sim operator, to the administrator, as being a higher threat or lower threat. And so there was really quite a bit of digging in by the group about, documenting the different threat levels of how the code is added to the code base. And I just overall, I feel like the work is becoming very focused, and there seems to be a good amount of energy about the work going into the code. So another good meeting this Tuesday. Yep.
Great. Just on a point there, if you've got any comments, the first thing you mentioned about the speed of stuff and stuff like that, you referenced something about LSL, which for listeners who don't know, stands for Linden Scripting Language. It's the original scripting language used by Linden House for Second Life, whereas OSLL is OpenSim. OSL is Open Sim language.
Open Simulator.
OSSL, Open
Right.
Simulator scripting language. And I know that there are other languages too, but I presume this threat status, as it were, of OSSL is more dodgy than the old Linden scripting language, or is it just different degrees of the code?
No, I think you're exactly right, because I think the Linden scripting language has been approved by Linden Lab, and so it's pretty well understood how much of a risk it is to running a grid. Whereas OSSL is going to be there are going to be new commands, new features, and there's really no documentation or testing on is this a safe feature to run on your grid or not.
Okay. It rather sounds like the OpenSim vanilla code, as they call it these days. Anyway, I know the IMA, for example, are busy trying to not so much recompile any of that code, but actually go through the code and annotate it.
Yeah.
So that people who want to do things with it can actually go back and see what they're doing. At the moment, the core OpenSim devs are working with code that presumably they pretty much understand because they've been doing it for a long while, but I gather a lot of it is just not annotated in any way, so nobody can easily pop into the code and find the place they need to
absolutely.
Try tweaking.
Yeah, even in non-community developed programs, commercially developed programming, documentation is the hardest thing to produce. It's, you get the work done and then, I have more work to document this, but it's very important.
Yeah, it's like it's like the rule book for science, isn't it? You conduct an experiment, but it's not valid until it can be replicated. And
exactly.
if you didn't keep any notes, oops,
yep.
You can't replicate it. Oh yeah, well I've done it. I swear I've done it. Really,
That's
really.
Right. That's right.
But I can't do it again. Don't know why.
So should I share my notes after producing the show today? How did you do this? How was this done?
But no, they can replay it, you see.
So
they can replicate your announcements anytime they want.
That's right.
I don't think it needs any science behind it to prove that you said it.
All right, very good.
You simply said it. Whether it's true or not is another matter.
Well, that is another matter. That's right.
We live in a world where, we could be the state-of-the-art untruth news channel.
That's right.
And you wouldn't even know it.
Get your fake news here.
Because we keep our faces, we stop giggling for a minute, keep our faces serious and tell you that was what was. And well, over here I'm in the UK, so it's not, of course, a post-election blues. It's kind of post-election numbness. Nobody can really, really figure out what happened.
No.
But something certainly did. And for good and for not so good all at the same time. We're in a mess over here. We got to do so much all at once. Now we haven't got a proper government to do it with. Anyway, that's non-metaverse news, as it were. On the final point, because I actually attended the Robert Scoble session, I only actually spent half an hour briefly at the IMA weekly meetup. That's the Infinite Metaverse Alliance, who are doing great coordination things at the moment. And the only real bit I picked up from there was that Selby Evans has some kind of stress testing device that the idea is he's going into various simulators and testing scripts and things like that. Basically, he needs a sandbox region on a particular grid to do it, and I gather he's testing various open simulator grids, but also testing the same thing on Halcyon grids, Ariba grids, and things like that. So it's a kind of test that is run, but it's independent of the actual platform that the world is built on. It's not just pure open sim code, I think. So all I would say, very good to see everybody doing all that stuff over there, and hopefully we will have some more information about some of the working groups there with guests on Inworld Review in coming weeks, looking at different aspects of the working groups they're doing. So that's about it from me. Anything else from you, James, that will qualify as news for the
No,
masses?
That's it for me. That's it for me. So thanks so much.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for this week. Do join us again next week. We have come to you a little bit earlier this week for technical reasons, but I know many of you watch us in replay, so you probably don't give a damn when we went live. I don't think there will be an Inworld review this week. If there is, it will be in some hours' time at the regular time, but I think we're probably going to pass on it this week in order to bring you a bumper edition next week. I always say that. I always say that.
Absolutely.
I always say that. But there is a slim chance that somebody might want to do it with us today, in which case just keep your eyes on the feeds, as it were. So thank you for watching, everybody. Hope we have provided a useful service, as it were. And that's about it. We will be back this time next week, and embed us in your our YouTube shows, in your blogs, or pass on the links so your friends can watch it if this stuff is what they're into, as they say. And we'll see you soon. Bye for now.